Seeing as how a lot of you were here for my last speech, I'm going to ask some of the same questions. How many people have sat through a class that was completely boring and you just didn't want to be there? And how many times did you think those thoughts in high school? And how many people wish they could have taken more classes in high school that would not only prepare them for their future career, but just life as an adult in general? Well, these are the questions that are being asked to people in education who think it is a good idea to reform at least high schools. According to Jody Luber in an article from Women's Forum, one of the biggest reasons for high school dropout right now is lack of interest in classes or school. So why not change these things if we can? Along with trying to lower the dropout rate, many education specialists believe that students are no longer prepared for adult life and or their career. I personally believe in and have seen the beginning changes of education reform in my high school and think it is going in a positive direction. And so throughout this speech, we're going to talk about why change needs to come about, what would be changed, and why standardized education just doesn't work in high schools anymore. So a couple of the things that need to be changed, or why things need to be changed, is society is different now than it was even 10 years ago. People value different things, and there's new technologies. And William Daggett, in an article for the International Center for Leadership and Education, wrote that students need to learn new skills based off of the new technology, and that they need to work harder, faster, and smarter than their predecessors to enjoy success in their adult life, which makes total sense. If you look at 10 years ago, we didn't have iPhones. We dialed and took pictures, and that was it. You know, it's been recently that we get all this new technology, so people need to learn to do that, work all this new technology, and it's easier to do it when they're younger and in high school. And a lot of kids are interested in that, so if we can get them into classes that they're interested in, that would help lower dropout rates, thus helping a lot of things. And then a lot of students are unprepared for their career in adult life. There was a poll done, Education Week did a survey, and that 57% of people that were polled believe that transition from high school to post-secondary college doesn't work well. It doesn't go smoothly. Kids are having issues. So that there needs to be more coordination between the two. And it would just be a question of why set up kids to fail right away in college. If we can get them into classes now, that would help prepare them for that. And then that would also, in turn, help them with their lifelong jobs and better preparation. Daggett also wrote in this same article that skills needed in school and on the job are much different. You can be great in school, but you could be horrible at your job. You can take tests well, but once you get to the actual job, that could be bad. So there would be more hands-on in these new schools so that you can see, if I'm going to be horrible at this job, then I'll just switch. Or if I don't have interest, I'll just switch. And that teachers shouldn't teach black and white from the book anymore, because it doesn't work. Plain and simple, things have changed. There's no need to teach the same 4 years of English over and over and over. And that was also from William Daggett from that article. So that's a little bit of why things need to change. So now we're going to talk about what to change. And what really is the concept is the last couple years of high school. Your first 2 years, do the same thing you have been doing. In the last couple of years, you'll change. And then in that last couple of years, you'll be able to learn from real life experience, like on-the-job training, while you're still in school. Classes would also change. The size would change, be smaller so that more one-on-one work can happen, because Education Week says that smaller class sizes make for optimal learning. So even if total reform doesn't happen, this would still be a good idea for high schools, just so that kids can learn better. And then the academies. And for those people that aren't familiar with academies, the National Conference of State Legislatures says that it's a school design that creates personalized learning opportunities through career-related experiences during high school. So it'd be like, if you were all interested in the health field, you would all have classes dealing with health the last couple of years. And the same conference wrote that academies are improving labor market preparation and successful school work transition without compromising education. So you're still learning, you're just learning how to be an adult and how to go from high school to adult. And this is what a lot of people are wanting, which is what that 57% of people wanted done in that poll. I had the opportunity of being a test school where we did academies, and it worked great because you were with all the people that also wanted to be in your field, but it failed because it wasn't like, oh, I'm going to take anatomy and physiology and biology because I want to be in health. You were just in the same classes, like English and social studies, with those people. So it kind of failed in that respect because it was supposed to be classes based on your wanted career. Another thing that would need to be changed is the teachers. They would need new rigorous training, obviously, if they're going to be teaching something totally different that no one's ever taught. And then there might be new quote-unquote teachers, people who work in a certain field that come in and teach kids about the job and show them how to do things. Next, we're going to talk about standardized education. Is everyone familiar with No Child Left Behind? That is the general thing about all kids should have the equal chance to have an education, which I totally agree with. Great idea. But a great idea with elementary and middle school kids when you're still learning what you need to know for English and math. But by the time you get to high school, you've learned pretty much what you're going to learn, especially within the first 2 years. So by the last 2 years, you're just learning stuff over and over and over. There's no need for that. You could be doing something else with your time. The teachers, when it comes to standardized education, Joel Klein, in an article for the New York Times, wrote that teachers are great teachers and can inspire kids, but when they're having to teach to a list, they're wasting their talent. Because one mark of a good teacher is that they're able to inspire. And if you're hitting list points, you're not inspiring anybody. And then because teachers are under so much pressure for their kids to perform to keep their job, they are cheating for kids on tests because they want to keep their job. And that's not helping anybody. So, and then the students, when it comes to standardized education, they only learn math, English, social studies, and science. That's it. So kids that are good at things like art and music don't get that because that's not what's No Child Left Behind. In the standardized tests, that the only thing they're doing is seeing if a kid can fill in a bubble. You could guess all day long. You don't have to know anything. And then Hillary Clinton, in the same article for the New York Times, had a quote, and it says, "Tests tell kids they are failures because it may not show what they are good at," which is totally true. You could be awesome at art, but it's not on the test. Nobody knows. So this is obviously the very, very tip of what is being talked about when it comes to education reform. There's so many things to figure out with regards to financing, what to change, and how to change all this. Many people, including myself, believe these changes are good and should be done. And many have done extensive research on why things should be changed, what should be changed, and why standardized education just doesn't work in high schools.